Okay, the hour of 6 p.m. having arrived. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you enter the meeting room. The public or other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker is participating remotely this evening. Committee members, be sure to turn on your microphones when speaking, and if you're speaking at one of the microphones, please make sure it's on. Call us to order. Agenda items for this evening. We start with FACT TV, an annual report. So our liaison is going to join you, I think.
Is it right here?
Just introduce you.
Okay.
Hello, Rebecca Landry. I almost said IT director. My gosh, it's been almost 2 years. Communications and marketing director and assistant city manager. So this is FACT TV's first annual report since they took on the public access portion of our community access television services. And of course, you know that the city is doing its own government programming, whereas FACT does the public programming. So I'm very grateful to FACT that they were very forthcoming with this annual report right on time. And they are here to report to you after their first year of services, how things are going and what their plan is for the future. We do have a contract with FACT, and this is one of the requirements of their contract.
All right, great. I'm Alex Stradling, Executive Director at Falls Area Community Television. And I just wanted to express our gratitude to this council, the City Council, the residents of Keene for wanting to continue public access in the City of Keene in that service. I would also like to thank the producers that have come in. Josh, if you want to list off the people that have helped out us throughout the year.
Sorry. My name is Josh Brownlee. I'm the station manager for the new station here in Keene. And since we started, it's been amazing. I also want to thank everyone. It's been pretty quick to pick up. We've been open for less than a year, and we already have over a dozen new shows that have started. Some people who used to have shows with Cheshire TV have come back and wanted to start new shows or start the same show, just continuing. We have producer, there's one gentleman named Ryan Bork. Apparently he's had a show with Cheshire TV for over 10 years. And he was very excited to get back to it. He's kind of a figurehead in the local community from what I've gathered. And we're happy to have him. We have two producers, actually. They're a married couple named Kim and Kurt Bronsroth, and they run a local gaming show, and they've been amazing. They had their own YouTube station that they did, and then they joined forces with us basically, and they have just created amazing content with the resources that we provide. Chris Coates has come back, and he's actually been wonderful since since I've met him and since we've started working with him. He, along with Luca Paris, are going to be providing us with new cameras for the station, which is pretty amazing. And he's going to be starting up a new show as well. That's I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So yeah, was anything else?
Yeah, I mean, and also the community organizations that have supported us. We want to give thanks to the Keene Chamber of Commerce, the high school, we're going to be starting to hopefully do some sporting events over there again, and they were happy to have us back. In addition to that, Adam Topher at Keene Pride was an organization that we've been working with, and they've been a supporter of us, and so on and so forth. So we just wanted to give those thanks to those people and members in the community that have supported us and support public access, and and moving forward, we want to work hard to establish a solid relationship here in the town and really provide a solid service of providing assistance to folks who want to create video content, who want to communicate to their local residents, and also getting out into the community and covering those local events that normally just wouldn't get covered. So.
I will say this year we covered the Keene Music Fest, which we actually just finished editing and is now running on our channel, and that was pretty exciting. As far as I'm aware, that was the first year it was covered, and it's great. If anyone hasn't seen it, there was a lot of great bands, and there was a lot of other festivals like that that we covered this year. We did a lot of work, as he said, with Keene Pride. They had a lot of events that they just didn't have the resources to get covered, so it was really great that we could get connected with them to be able to cover those.
All right, cool. Now, do you guys, do you have questions on the budget? Did you look over that, or did you want me to sort of run through that for you, line by line?
So all the members of the council, this is the committee, but the entire council got your report.
Yep.
In advance. And I'll just say right off the bat, it was very comprehensive, it was the best information we've gotten on any project like this in a long time. So perhaps some members of the committee may have some questions, and if you want to do just like a highlight, we don't really need to get
absolutely.
into the details of all of it, but
Okay.
it's very comprehensive.
Yeah. So you got the report. I'm going to highlight real quickly, as you can see. If I can bring it up here. I mean, you got, there's our budget. Just so I can scroll through it. You got it?
Yeah, which page are you looking for?
I'm on my iPad here, but just bring it up. All right, so I mean, we have, as you can see, we have our two separate budgets, one for our Vermont region. I do have to keep the budget separate, and the accounting was a little tough this year because I have to file reports with the state of Vermont on our end separately, and those numbers need to keep track of. But for the city of Keene, like I mentioned in my opening letter, yeah, we are going to be, we budgeted out a deficit, which I had mentioned, and that's mainly because we're redoing our website, and we're going to be providing a new video on-demand web service. So that's where that sort of the loss is coming in through. We planned for it. We'll tap into our reserves, and as I mentioned before, you know, the state, we just got a grant from the state of Vermont, so that we won't be running a deficit, which I don't like running a deficit. We like to have our reserve fund. We like to be an organization that's financially responsible, so that you know, in case emergency happens, that we're able to you know, adapt and recover and to take care of that. So I'm happy to report that news. The new website will be a much cleaner design than what we currently have, and the video on demand service provides faster playback options and allows more users to be able to access the content. It is cheaper for us to go on YouTube, and the reason that why Public Access Center does have to have their own sort of video on demand site is because YouTube has their own community guidelines, and we are a public access station, and sometimes, you know, what's okay on cable may not be okay on, you know, on YouTube and so on and so forth. So that allows us to be able to continue to have the content up and to be able to serve, you know, what our mission is, which is, you know, allowing people to have a voice and to be able to speak their opinion with, you know, within our guidelines. So, does anyone have any very specific questions on the line items? Yeah, I mean, unless. Is there anything else? Any other questions that you guys have?
I think there is, I guess you're still working a project where we're working out an inventory of production equipment, other equipment that sort of came into your, was there when you got there?
Yeah. The one last thing that we have to work out is how. So you have equipment, and there are times where people come into the station and they may want to use the station facilities and equipment, but it's not in line with the mission of public access. And if the equipment is available and the space is available, then we would charge a rental fee, either to use the studio space or to rent the equipment out. It adds a little extra revenue, and so on and so forth. Now, we did collect some revenue. It's just sitting in our bank account, and we're waiting, either you deduct it or we pay you a check. I think it's about $600 is what we collected in, I got to look at the numbers, but there's a certain amount around there, $300 to $600 that we did collect in equipment rental services. So that's just sitting. We just have to work with the lawyers to be able to figure out, what the policy is going to be, and then, how whether or not we do have a payment system that's already in place at public access. So whether or not we're going to use a payment system where the money goes directly to the city of Keene, or whether or not we're just going to accept the funds and then we pay out what we made for the equipment. So that's the last thing we have to figure out on that.
I can speak to that briefly
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So they use at the Keene station, they use a software called Facile, and that's what they use to rent out equipment. That's what Cheshire TV used to use to rent out any equipment that people needed. And I believe the way they used to have it was that account was connected directly to a bank account that was used for the city of Keene. And because it's not connected to that account anymore, we've just been doing it a separate way. So if people really need something, we rent it out, just basically pen and paper. We rent it out to them. It's kind of until we get this squared away and figured out, where the money's going. As he said, it's just being held onto, and it's not going anywhere. But the rentals is the only. It's not an issue per se. It's just something that we have been trying to unravel where it goes, because we do have every once in a while people will come in and they'll want to rent equipment, and we just want to make sure that that it goes to the right place.
Yeah, and the last thing, I just put in, usually what we do in the state of Vermont, when we do file, we do file a report in terms of the relationship with the cable provider, and seeing how you guys are the franchisee, I just filed the letter of, we kind of are responsible for for the aspects of the public channel and how the end user receives it. So I wrote this letter just to put it on file, so it's out in the public. But one issue is the programming guide, which you could see in the last letter. They have old information on there, so I'm going to contact Spectrum to remove the programming guide. And if the city does want programming guide information, this was something that wasn't sort of accounted for in the contract. I mean, it is possible. I can do it. We do have a service that will provide the programming guide information. It costs us, for our region in Bellows Falls, about $2,500 a year, and that's something that for the city to consider if they want. The programming guide is obviously when you click guide on your cable TV, it will show up what program's playing and so on and so forth. So something to consider.
I can say that I believe Cheshire TV, they had software that they used for the programming guide, but when we inherited the space, they didn't leave us any passwords or usernames or anything, so we have no way to access whatever they used, and that's the reason why we would have to basically create it from scratch, a new programming guide, because what it's running right now is something from Cheshire TV from years and years ago.
Yeah, so I'm going to contact Spectrum and get at least the false information taken down for programming guide, and then it would be up to the city whether or not they would consider throwing in an extra $2,500 to provide that programming guide or work out something. But I just wrote that letter, and just one things that just to consider. So. And you always ask for HD channels, whether or not the cable company gives it to you or not. But at least might as well just log it in there. So we will be getting Comcast is working, moving us in our Vermont area to HD, and our other cable provider, VTEL, provides HD channels. So So I just send these letters out. We do this every year in our other reports. So this would be my two things for Spectrum Cable in terms of public access. So
Thanks. Rebecca, you had some more information?
Thank you. Rebecca Landry, Communications and Marketing Director. I just wanted to mention that the issue with rental is a little different because with FACT, the city maintained ownership of the studio and all of the equipment, which is why it's a little different setup than it was before. And so it's just something that we hadn't contemplated when we entered into the agreement, and we'll work out a resolution for that. As far as the other requests go, just so happens we're in the process of negotiating a renewal of our franchise agreement with Charter Spectrum, and so their requests are timely and already taken into consideration.
yeah, is there any way that Fact TV could be as an put on as an interested party in terms of those? Because we do have to maintain the cable channel in terms of technical difficulties and stuff like that.
That can be resolved outside of this meeting. We can
Oh,
have
okay.
that conversation.
All right, all right.
Okay.
Questions up here? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just looking at your list of board of directors, are there any plans in the future to add Keene residents onto the board of directors, or how would that work out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So now that we're a part of the Keene service area, our bylaws include every area that we serve. I don't know if folks are current board members are. We have 3 seats that are open. I'm not sure how many may not run for re-election. However, folks can go to our website and go to factate.com, and they can fill out, go to a link and fill out the board member application. Our annual meeting will be October 18th. So all they have to do is fill out the application. I'll send those details to the city of Keene, so maybe they can actually post that up on their website. And we're also, what we like to do is we're going to hit up folks that have a relationship with Fact TV, residents of Keene, and see if they're interested in becoming a board member. So
I have a few producers are interested as well.
my goal is definitely to have, to kind of even out the board so that we have half Keene residents and half residents in our service area, for sure. So definitely going to be a goal this year as we head towards our annual meeting. And then in addition to that, the city also has one board seat that we hold reserved specifically for for them to nominate a board member. So definitely on my mind, and definitely something we want to even things out as we go along, as we move forward. So
Great, thank you.
yeah.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Sorry for being late, so this may have been covered, but can we get a copy of like what the programming is for Keene, and like just even an email of like here's what the schedule is and what things are going on? Because I don't have any feel for how much of the content being produced is actually from Keene, how much of our public information is actually getting out there. Because I know these are going on YouTube, but I don't know that they're going through anything with Fact TV, like this meeting that we're sitting in right now.
Excuse me, this meeting right now, like, I believe these meetings are aired on 1302, which is now run by the city. So it's not something we control. But as far as programming that's produced in Keene, so all of that is spread throughout the Bells Falls channel and our channel. Right now, we are actually running. So it's a little complicated because of some of the things. Cheshire TV ran a different server type than we did. They had something called Latronics, and we run something slightly different. And so we've been sort of adapting as we come along. So now we have 2 different schedules running, and both schedules have significant amount of shows from both states, from both stations. But the one in Keene, the schedule that runs from usually around 7 p.m. to 10 a.m., that one is almost entirely just Keene local programming. because it's the one that we've created through Latronics, and it's we try to use as much local programming as we can, obviously, because we want to broadcast what people do,
Yeah.
local producers.
We don't get numbers from the cable company, but I do have some numbers for you. So far, since we opened our doors in February, we produced 81 hours of content through Keen. That's 100 episodes of programming. On average, we do about 22 different shows a month out of Keene. We have how many producers coming in and doing shows? Was it 10? We had 10.
We have over a dozen shows, and some
okay.
of them have more than one producer.
I haven't. It's a little tough on the website numbers. So one of the goals is the outreach and to let people know where to go to get programming from content. So absolutely being able to share out our content schedule to you guys, and maybe have the city of Keene put up our programming guide for on your city website will help drive more people to become aware that they can get some local content. I do have some Google Analytic numbers. So they're kind of low, but we started in February, but 258 unique visitors to our website from Keene. So, I mean, considering the percentage of the population, that is, we'd want to reach 2%. I mean, 2% of the population. So, obviously, we're redoing the website, and, we want to do more outreach and let people know where they can get content from Keene. So, yeah, those are the numbers that I have right now. And, yeah, cable numbers, they never give us. I've been doing this for 15 years, and that's something that we ask the cable companies all the time. Like, why can't you give us the numbers so we at least know how we're doing in the community? And they refuse, and so on and so forth. So, maybe Spectrum will give you the numbers, but it's not a standard practice. So I absolutely agree. We can send you the schedule, and hopefully we can get that posted up, and obviously going to do the work to get more people aware. So.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I can see the schedule online. I just didn't know if there was something else that was like Keene specific, but I can see I've got your website up on here. I was looking
Yeah, and that's the old website. New one's gonna look a little fresher. That one's a little bit 2005-ish. So,
in your review of the website expenses, I see you're allocating a portion of it to the Keene
Yes.
P&L.
Yeah.
It looked like about a third, just right around there for
Yeah.
what you had projected.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that allocation for?
the $6,000, the $6,000 for the up. Yeah. So it.
We can hear you without the mic.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So I basically. So what the new video on demand is going to cost us per year is $8,000, and so it's roughly a little bit about half, a little bit more than half, $8,000 to $10,000. The online and web services isn't just for the website; it's for all the work that we do in Bellows Falls in terms of uploading the content. And maintaining that database. So it's $3,000 for the video on demand stuff, and $3,000 for the additional, content upload. Depending, we just started in February, but the content that's coming out of Keene has kind of been building up over time. So I just accounted for that over a 3-year period. So.
Thank you. I'm going to keep poking at numbers for a second.
Yeah,
it's my
keep
fun part.
going.
Yeah,
It's
so
not.
that understanding that
Yeah.
you also have labor in here as a separate line.
Is it the administrative cost
There's
or
administrative and there's also payroll.
payroll?
So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how that stacks with. I was previously thinking
absolutely.
that was web expense, but then if you have some expense for labor in
Yeah,
there, then I'm
yeah.
trying to understand.
So you're looking at the budget numbers. So the labor, the payroll is specific for the 2 employees at the Keene station.
Yep.
The administrative cost is about 5 hours a week for my additional, coming to these meetings, writing up Keene specific reports, doing any of the additional administrative stuff that's would be taken away prior to this contract, where my time was spent fully with the residents, in our service area. So it's about $3,050 per year. So so that's what the administrative cost is. So.
Yeah, sorry, I was poking at, so the payroll, and then when you're saying that there's 6,000 in website services, understand?
Yeah, okay, so maybe I need to break this down a little bit, I apologize. So yes, the video on demand services, the yearly fee for a service called Restream, which allows us to take in a broadcast feed and then stream it out to various online platforms.
Also go live if someone wants to run a show.
Go live and other software. I mean, actually, I can email you a breakdown of QuickBooks breakdown of every little line item. I just don't have it all, but there's additional software services,
No,
and so on and so forth.
that's okay.
Yeah.
When I look through this, I'm trying to understand, and I don't really have a full appreciation for what our accountability is to review this. Like, I don't know what,
You're a member of the public. You have any accountability. You can ask whatever question you want, and you can. So here's our open door policy. Someone can come into our station and say, "Hey, open up your books for me," and I will say, "Absolutely." So if there's something very specific and you want more detailed information, I will get it for you. Not a problem.
I think I'm okay, but I think Rebecca's going to comment on why, because I don't know why we review this, I guess, would be more of a general statement, so.
It comes down to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, may I? It comes down to, they have certain obligations based on the contract that we have with them. And one of the things that is different with FACT than it had been before is that the state of Vermont has regulatory influence over public access in Vermont, and so they have, in order to continue doing what they're doing, they have to meet those requirements. And it is much, the budget detail that we're getting, the reporting that we're getting is far more detailed than we've ever gotten before, because that's not the way it works in New Hampshire, but they're going to that extent for us because they also operate in New Hampshire. So we do look at all of these numbers. We make sure they're meeting all the requirements of our contract.
Thank you, and I hope we can pressure Spectrum to help us with getting viewership numbers as well while we're having this conversation.
Good.
But I'll take a step
Good
back.
luck.
That would be helpful to understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for this report. The level of transparency and openness, and as you stated, your open door policy is a real breath of fresh air from what we were used to with Cheshire TV, especially in that last year. So I'm really happy to see this, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback about the programming my constituents have been seeing. So keep up the good work.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you. I just wanted to say that this is my dream job, and I've tried really hard all year to go above and beyond for everyone who wants to make a show. And so if people are saying good things, that means a lot.
You're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you, man.
Okay, ready for a motion?
Move to recommend the annual report from FACT TV be accepted as informational.
And I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Nobody's opposed, unanimous. Thanks very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Finance Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am here before you regarding our audit contract. And I'm asking you that you will recommend to the City Council to authorize the city manager to do all things necessary to waive the bidding requirements under Section 2-1336, waiver of requirements for the FY23 City of Keene Annual Audit Engagement, and authorize the city manager to sign the engagement letter with Markham LLP. Markham LLP is formerly known as Melanson. They got bought out by a bigger auditing firm, and they have been our current auditor since 2009. We went back out to bid in 2016, and they were the lower bidder, So we continued with them, and our contract expired after the end of the 2022 audit. They have been, a very good firm to work with. They're very knowledgeable. They have helped us with receiving the Certification of Achievement Award for the last 4 years. We're waiting right now for our 5th year straight to see if we get the award again for 2022. They know how we run our business. They have been, a go-to with setting up the new software, and they're familiar with our new practices with the software. So we're really hoping that you'll recommend keeping them for 1 more year for the 23 audit, and then we will go out with an official bid for request for qualifications. But state of New Hampshire, there are not a lot of firms out there that actually do audits of municipalities, especially the more complicated ones. And we, even though we're a smaller city compared to Nashua and Manchester, we are very complex. We have the airport. We have a lot of FAA grants and a lot of federal funding, and our federal audits are getting bigger and bigger every year. So we're not a simple small town. And I believe last time we went out to bid in 2016, there were 3. That was it. 1 from Maine and 2 from New Hampshire. And we got a thank you, but no thank you letter from one of the other larger CPA firms in the state that just couldn't take on any more business. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one, and I'm curious how this rate that we're quoted in here compares to what it has been in the contract for the last 5.
And it's a good question that you ask, and I did look at our FY22 audit was $43,500.
Okay, so pretty substantial increase over that, but it's,
It is, but their liabilities, the work that they do, yeah.
okay.
And I do have to say, one of the quotes that we had gotten back in 2006, the first year was $45,000, so.
Anybody else? Markham, is that, thank you. Are they New Hampshire?
Markham is actually based out of New York. They have offices in Massachusetts, Maine, and New Hampshire. So they're still holding the same staff, same office location as Melanson did.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody from the public? Okay, motion.
Move to recommend that the city council authorize the city manager to do all things necessary to waive bidding requirements under section 2-1336, waiver of requirements, for the FY 2023 City of Keene annual audit engagement, and authorize the city manager to sign the engagement letter with Markham LLP.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? No opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
The airport.
Evening, everyone. Dave Hickley, Airport Director. The first item you have before you is acceptance of an FAA AIP grant. This may look familiar because we've been through this once. We accepted grants. We had accepted grants, actually executed the grants, but by the time we got the funding, the contractor could no longer do the job for that price. So we threw out those bids and rebid it. We still have those grants, but the FAA, we submitted a new grant application based on the new bids, and the FAA is going to recall the previous bids and reissue them for the new contract price. And that's what this FAA grant is for here. There's actually 2 grants that make up the funding for this project. The first is a supplementary discretionary AIP grant, and that is 100% funded, the $1.611 million. The second grant will be the remainder of the project. That's 90% FAA funded, and then 5% will be state and 5% will be airport. So we're looking for the committee's recommendation to do all things necessary, or to authorize the city manager to do all things necessary to execute the grant and spend these funds.
Questions? Members of the public? Seeing none? Motion.
I like this one. Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept, execute, and expend grant funding for up to the amount of $3,102,257 from the FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program for the Taxiway A reconstruction project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
You have another one?
Yes, this will be to expend some of this grant money.
Of course.
Whenever we do these FAA projects, we need to work with an engineering consultant that's familiar with FAA projects. So if you remember, not long ago, we changed our engineer of record to McFarland Johnson. This would be an agreement with McFarland Johnson to oversee this project. So what they do is the construction managers, they do provide project oversight, make sure that the work is being done per FAA specs. They're a little different as far as asphalt mix, compaction requirements, et cetera. But they also make sure that we're meeting all grant assurances. As the finance director just mentioned, there's a lot of requirements to these FAA grants. We need to track, we need to have monthly project meetings, provide the minutes to all those meetings. We need to prove that we're meeting prevailing wage payrolls for Davis-Bacon Act. There's DBE requirements. They make sure we've got all this paperwork together, so when we get that edit, or that audit, we'll have this put together. So we look forward to working with them. I do need to clarify the project cost breakdown at the bottom. The $285,200 for the contract includes $14,400. It's not AIP fundable. So we'll need to add that to the local share. So there'd be $13,540 would be the local share of the grant, what the grant covers under this project, and then we'd add that $14,400 that's non-AIP fundable. And the reason that is, I just found this out. So that $14,400, when I asked McFarland Johnson to take over this project, when we changed the engineer of record, they were reluctant because another engineering firm had done the design. So they spent quite a bit of time going through the project design to make sure that they could actually implement this and get a contractor to do it. They requested a lot of changes from the engineer that did the design. They put a lot of work into that. So that was not AIP fundable for that work. We do have money programmed for that. It's not in the project budget yet, but we will be transferring that into the project budget to cover those costs.
Questions?
Not as much a question, thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you for having those numbers prepared. I was a little curious what those are. So it's a total of $27,940 coming from the city across those, $14,400 plus the 13 something.
It's 13,540 would be the
Yep.
5%, and then 14,400. I had 27,080, but I added it really quick.
14,400 and 13,540 is the 27,940 that I
Okay.
have right here. But thank you for having those prepared, and I think that'll be really, I'm glad to have 95% of it, or almost 95% of it funded, so.
Other questions? Anybody in the public? Seeing none? It's a motion.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to execute a professional engineering service contract with McFarland Johnson for the construction and administration of the Taxiway A reconstruction project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the discussion. Members of the committee? Seeing none? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
I don't have to read that one.
I know, there's three motions.
All right, which side are you? Bring in or spend it?
Both,
Okay.
yes.
Carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Don Lucier, City Engineer. The item 5 on your agenda contains a total of 3 different resolutions, and I'll explain them all in series. But I'll get into the background first. So last June timeframe, the city put together an application to US DOT for a new grant program that came about as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The program is called Safe Streets and Roads for All. The purpose of it is to try to significantly reduce and, ideally eliminate deaths and serious injuries on the nation's highways. So that's the gist of it. Had a couple of unique characteristics. One of them is that to be eligible, so that the grant actually has 2 different pots of money in it. There's a pot of money for planning grants, where you do safety action plans, and then there's a pot of money where you get implementation funds to actually do the improvements that your plan calls for. But one of the unique aspects of this grant is, in order to apply for implementation funds, you have to have an adopted safety action plan that meets all of the criteria that's in this program. So the first round of this grant, like 99% of the applications were for planning grants. There was only a small handful. I think nationally there was maybe 30 implementation grants that were approved. So the city put in an application. We were one of 4 communities in New Hampshire, or 4 agencies, I'll say. It was 2 other municipalities and a metropolitan planning organization that submitted applications and were awarded planning grants under this program. So we were awarded a federal grant of $350,000. Yay me! Not as great as Dave's $3 million, but we'll take it. Like most federal grants, there is a local match requirement, and all of the DOT grants are really typically 20%. The FAA is a little atypical in that their grants are their match requirements are much smaller. But DOT's typical is 20%, and this is also falls under that. So the city would be responsible. In order to use that full grant amount of $350,000, the city would have a requirement for local match of $87,500. Now, this was, obviously it was a new program. It wasn't something that we knew about when we were writing the last CIP. So there was really no matching funds that were planned or appropriated in the CIP. So the first item, the first recommendation on the item tonight is regarding that appropriation of funds. I'm sure you all know your next regularly scheduled FOP meeting was canceled because it's also the night of the annual fireman's dinner. And because of that, it would put off the award of the work and us starting on the project. So we will be introducing a resolution at the next council meeting, but we won't have another FOP before the second council meeting for the second reading. So, I wanted to kind of put it out there that this is coming and give this committee a chance to talk about and opine on its appropriation of additional funds, since it won't be, we're going to be requesting that the mayor table it at the first reading and then bring it back up for a vote at the next meeting, if that makes sense. So that's the first motion on the list. The second one is related to the grant itself. It's just giving the manager the authority to negotiate and execute a grant with the federal DOT. And then the third item is related to the consultant selection. As with all of our federally funded projects, the engineering services are required to use the federal acquisition regulations, and for professional services, the feds require we use what's called a qualifications-based selection. So we interview and we select a firm that we think is most qualified to do the work, and then we negotiate a scope and a fee that we believe is reasonable and fair with that most qualified firm. And if we can't come to an agreement with that firm, then we negotiate with the second most qualified firm, and so on. And that's typical for all of our federally funded grant program projects. So we've gone through that process now. We did put out an RFQ a couple months ago. We got a total of 4 statements of qualification from different consultants for the project. I will say that all of them were very well qualified firms. I was very impressed during the interviews. We interviewed 3 of the 4, and I was very impressed with all of them. They all had, put a lot of thought and really put a lot of, advanced work into thinking about how they would do this project for us. So that was encouraging to see. But the committee did select VHB as our recommendation to advance as the most qualified firm. So the third item on the agenda is to negotiate and execute a professional services contract with VHB in the amount up to that full grant-funded program of $437,500. Questions?
Committee members? VHB has done some other work for us.
Yeah, VHB's done a lot of different work for us. They've done a lot of work, like, for example, in the watershed. They do some water and sewer modeling for us. I would say that the reason that they were selected as the most qualified for this one, couple different reasons. They are currently the firm that holds the state DOT contract for doing roadway safety audits. So they're kind of steeped in that world, doing the similar kind of analysis for the DOT. They also had, I think, a pretty good answer about access to safety records. There's a real bottleneck here in New Hampshire with the Department of Safety being the sort of the keep, and the Department of Safety sort of keeps all of the accident data, all the accident records in the state, but the people who are responsible for making the roads safer aren't allowed to see it, which is really just a ridiculous situation. But because VHB is already in the situation of using that data for the state DOT, we think that they have a better chance of getting us access to that data so we can use it for our project. And there were other reasons as well. It was just a very solid team.
Members of the public? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick questions. Do we have a general idea of when we would get that report back from them? Like, is this a
So-
1-year project, 2-year project?
So we're hoping, and what we talked about with the consultants during the interviews, is our goal is to be in a position to put in an application for implementation fundings next June. That's what we're working towards. Now that's a pretty aggressive schedule. There's a lot to these plans. They have to do a lot of data analysis. They've got to reach out. There's a lot of requirements for public engagement. We're going to be asking the mayor to stand up a roadway safety action plan committee to kind of guide this, and it's going to include representatives, for example, from the school district and the college, and probably somebody from Keene Housing. So, kind of representing a diverse cross-section of the community. And there's a number of meetings planned with that stakeholder group. So there's a lot of work to do, but our goal is to get it done by, like, say, next May, so that the city council can receive it, review it, get a presentation on it, and hopefully adopt it as our goal, our policy. And then we would use that as the basis for applying for implementation funds. We do have an advantage that we were one of the first agencies to get the action plan grant, so we're sort of at the front of the pack right now. But the longer we wait, the more agencies are going to become eligible and have eligible plans to ask for those implementation funds. So we're trying to push to get ourselves in a position to scoop up some of the implementation money.
That's good. If I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And with the plan, would we be expecting like specific detail, or would it be more general, like we should improve our sidewalks, or would it be we should put in a sidewalk here type of thing?
A little bit of both. So they're going to be looking at, hopefully, they're going to be looking at accident data, and if not the state data, they're going to rely on other databases. There's a federal database on fatal accidents, for example. So there's other sources that they can use if they don't get access to the DOS information, but hopefully the DOS information, because it's the most robust. But they'll be looking at that and developing what's called a high injury network. Basically, where are the hot spots? Where are the areas where we see a lot of fatal and hopefully not fatal, but injury networks or injury producing accidents. So they'll look at that and look for specific places where improvements need to be made, and they'll have specific, site-specific recommendations for those high injury locations. But they're also scoped to look more generally at trends. So if they look at all the data and they say, there's no one spot that's causing a lot of fatalities, but we notice that all of the fatalities have these three criteria in common. They happen during the night where there's low light levels at intersections, something like that. Well, that would be a more of a generalized recommendation to make sure we look at our intersections and make sure that they're properly lit. For example, I'm just pulling that out of the air. But so there's going to be site-specific recommendations we expect, but also more general, and including we asked them to look at our public utility standards, our complete streets guidelines, some of those other sort of planning level documents that we use as guides to see if there's any improvements we can make to those standards. So as we're rebuilding roadways, for example, we're doing things that are most likely to generate good safety results.
Thank you.
Motion then. You have to read the whole thing.
At least doing the first one. Move to recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution at its earliest opportunity to appropriate $87,500 from unallocated fund balance to fund the city's local matching funds for United States Department of Transportation Safe Streets and Roads for All Planning Grant.
And I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Nobody opposed? All right, that passes.
I'll do the next one.
All right, let's share the load here.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and execute a Safe Streets and Roads for All planning grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation in the amount of $350,000, federal share.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? And then all in favor? No one's opposed? That's unanimous. Third one?
You give me the spend one? Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Vanessa Hongjen Bruslin, VHB, Inc., for the Keene Roadway Safety Action Plan project for an amount not to exceed $437,500, and if an agreement cannot be reached with VHB, that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to negotiate and execute an agreement with the next highest ranked firm.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? No one's opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That's it. We're adjourned.
How'd I do on